What is Buddhism? Is Buddhism compatible with science? The 15 most common questions. You need to know, Part 2. What is Buddhism? The term Buddhism originates from the word buddhi, meaning to awaken or to be enlightened, and thus, Buddhism is a religion that leads to enlightenment. This doctrine stems from the experiences of one individual, Siddhatta Gautama, who achieved enlightenment at the age of 35 and is revered as the Buddha. To this day, Buddhism has existed for over 2,500 years and has approximately 380 million followers worldwide. Up until about 100 years ago, Buddhism was primarily an Eastern philosophy, but gradually, more people from Europe, Australia, and America have taken interest in it. So, is Buddhism just a philosophy? The word philosophy consists of two parts, philo meaning love or fondness and sophia meaning wisdom. Thus, philosophy is the love of wisdom or love and wisdom. Both meanings perfectly describe Buddhism. Buddhism teaches us to fully develop our intellectual capabilities for clear comprehension. It also teaches us to cultivate compassion to become true friends to all living beings. Therefore, Buddhism is a philosophy, but not just any philosophy. It is the supreme philosophy. Who is Buddha? In the year 623 BCE, a boy was born into a royal family in the northern region of India. The prince grew up in luxury, but soon realized that material comfort and safety do not guarantee happiness. He was deeply moved by the suffering of those around him and resolved to find the secret to human happiness. At the age of 29, he left his wife and child to seek enlightenment, sitting at the feet of the famous teachers of his time to learn. They taught him much, but none could truly comprehend the root of human suffering or how to escape it. Finally, after 6 years of ascetic practice and meditation, he had accumulated enough experience to break through ignorance and achieve enlightenment. From then on, he was revered as the Buddha, the Enlightened One. For 45 years, he traveled across northern India, teaching others what he had realized. The Buddha's compassion and patience were truly remarkable, attracting thousands to become disciples of Buddhism. Even at the age of 80, despite old age and illness, he lived in happiness and peace until his death. Did the Buddha avoid his responsibilities by leaving his family? For the Buddha, leaving his family must not have been easy. It's certain he pondered, reflected, and hesitated for a long time before making his decision. He faced two paths, dedicating himself to his family or dedicating himself to the whole world. Ultimately, because of his boundless compassion, he chose to devote himself to the world. To this day, the entire world still benefits from his noble sacrifice. This was not about shirking responsibility. Perhaps it was the most meaningful sacrifice ever made. How can the Buddha help us after his passing? Michael Faraday, who discovered electricity, has passed away, but his inventions still benefit us. Louis Pasteur found treatments for many diseases. He is gone, but his medical discoveries still save lives today. Leonardo da Vinci, who created many artworks, has died. Yet what he created continues to uplift spirits and bring joy to many. Great people and heroes from centuries past are gone, but reading about their heroic histories still inspires us and makes us want to emulate them. Indeed, the Buddha has passed into Nirvana, But 2,500 years later, his teachings still guide sentient beings, his virtuous example still inspires many, and his words still change lives. Only the Buddha could have such a profound impact centuries after his departure. Is the Buddha a deity? No, he is not a deity. He never claimed to be a god, the son of a god, or the messenger of a god. He was a human being who improved himself to perfection and taught that by following his virtuous example, we too can achieve perfection. If the Buddha is not a deity, why do people worship and venerate him? There are different ways to worship. When worshiping deities, people praise and honor them, offer gifts, and ask for blessings, believing that the deity will hear their praise, accept their offerings, and fulfill their prayers. Buddhists do not indulge in this type of worship. Another form of worship is to show respect to someone or something that one admires. For instance, when a teacher enters the room, we stand up to greet them. When meeting someone respectable, we bow. When the national anthem plays, we stand solemnly. These are acts of respect and veneration to express admiration and reverence. This is the kind of worship practiced by Buddhists. A statue of the Buddha sitting with his hands gently placed on his lap with a serene smile, compassionate and wise, reminds us to cultivate love and inner peace. The scent of incense reminds us of the profound fragrance of morality. The light of the candle symbolizes the light of wisdom, and the flowers that bloom and fade remind us of the impermanence of all things. When prostrating, we express our gratitude to the Buddha for his invaluable teachings. This is the meaning of prostration in Buddhism. But I've heard that Buddhists worship idols. Statements like these reveal a lack of understanding by the speaker. A dictionary defines an idol as an image or statue worshipped as a god. As we've seen, Buddhists do not believe the Buddha is a deity, so how could they believe a piece of wood or a metal sculpture is a deity? All religions use symbols to express various concepts. Taoism uses the yin-yang to symbolize the harmonious state of opposites. Sikhism uses the sword to symbolize spiritual struggle. In Christianity, the fish symbolizes Jesus' sacrifice. In Buddhism, the Buddha statue symbolizes the human essence of the Buddha's teachings, emphasizing that Buddhism is centered on humanity, not divinity, and that we should look inward, not outward, for perfection and wisdom. Therefore, saying that Buddhists worship idols is incorrect. Why do people burn paper money and do other peculiar things in temples? From our perspective, many practices seem strange until we understand them. Instead of dismissing these peculiarities, we should try to understand their meanings. It's true that some Buddhist rituals stem from folk beliefs and misconceptions rather than the Buddha's teachings. These misconceptions are not exclusive to Buddhism. The Buddha himself taught very clearly and in detail. We cannot blame him if some people are not fully informed. The scriptures contain a passage like this: "If someone falls ill and does not seek treatment, even though a skilled doctor is nearby, the fault is not the doctor's." Similarly, if someone is tormented by the disease of defilements and does not seek the Buddha's help, the fault is not the Buddha's. Buddha. We should not judge Buddhism or any religion by the misguided practices of some followers. If you want to understand the Buddha's true teachings, read his words or speak to those who correctly understand the Dharma. Is there a Buddhist holiday equivalent to Christmas? Traditionally, The birth, enlightenment, and passing of Prince Siddhartha occurred on the full moon day of the Vesak month in the Indian calendar, which corresponds to the full moon day in the fourth lunar month. Annually on this day, Buddhists worldwide gather to commemorate these three significant events, known as Vesak Day or Buddha Day. They visit temples, offer worship, listen to teachings on the Dharma, and many spend the day meditating and purifying their minds. If Buddhism is good, why are Buddhist countries so poor? Poverty, in the sense of economic hardship, is indeed a reality in some Buddhist countries. However, if we consider the quality of life, several Buddhist countries may actually be quite rich. For example, the United States is a wealthy and prosperous country, yet it has the highest rate of serious crimes in the world. Millions of elderly are forgotten by their families and die alone in nursing homes, and issues like domestic violence and child abuse are significant. 1 in 3 marriages ends in divorce, and the pornography industry is substantial. While wealthy in terms of material possessions, the quality of life may indeed be poor. In contrast, traditional Buddhist countries show significant differences. There, parents are treated with respect and reverence, crime rates are relatively low, and divorce and suicide rates are comparatively rare, with traditional values such as kindness, generosity, hospitality, tolerance, and respect for others still strong. Economically, they might be less developed, but in terms of quality of life, they may be higher than wealthier, more prosperous countries like the USA. However, if we're only looking at economics, it's also worth noting that one of the strongest economies in the world today is Japan, where the majority of people identify as Buddhists. Why is it rare to hear about Buddhists doing charitable work? Perhaps it's because Buddhists do not feel the need to publicly display their acts of charity. Years ago, a Japanese Buddhist leader named Nikkyo Niwano received the Templeton Prize for his efforts in promoting harmony and fostering goodwill among religions. Similarly, a Thai monk recently received the prestigious Magsaysay Award for his exemplary work in drug eradication. In 1987, another Thai monk, Venerable Kantai Apiwat, was awarded Norway's Children's Peace Prize for his years of helping homeless children in rural areas. What about the extensive social work of the Western Buddhist order aimed at assisting the poor in India? They have built schools, established centers to help children, hospitals and clinics, and small-scale industrial facilities for self-sufficiency. Like followers of other religions, Buddhists see their efforts to help others as one way of practicing the Dharma, but they believe these deeds should be done quietly and modestly, without pride or self-congratulation. Therefore, their charitable activities might not be as widely publicized. Why are there so many sects in Buddhism? Just as there are many types of sugar, brown sugar, rock sugar, granulated sugar, cube sugar, powdered sugar, etc., all sharing the common quality of sweetness, so it is with Buddhism. There's Theravada Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism, and Tantric Buddhism, but all these Buddhist sects share the essence of liberation. Buddhism has developed in various forms to adapt to different cultures. Over centuries, forms of Buddhism have been interpreted differently to suit new generations. While on the surface, these forms of Buddhism may seem very different, the core teachings of all the sects are the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. All major religions, including Buddhism, have been divided into many denominations and sects. However, Buddhist sects have never waged wars against each other, nor have they harbored hostility towards one another. Typically, Buddhists visit temples, make offerings, and worship the Buddha without distinction as to which sect the temple belongs to. This understanding and the virtue of inclusiveness are indeed rare. Buddhism originated in India, but eventually perished there. Why? The Buddha's teachings developed into a major religion in India, but gradually declined and vanished, much like Christianity began in Palestine, but also disappeared there. The exact reasons are not fully known. Perhaps social and political changes, along with wars and invasions, made it difficult for a peaceful and conciliatory religion to survive. However, before it perished in India, Buddhism had spread to the farthest reaches of Asia. Some say all religions are the same. Religion is a complex and diverse phenomenon that cannot be summarized in a simple statement. Buddhists might respond that the statement is partly true and partly false. For example, Buddhism does not advocate for a supreme deity, whereas Christianity teaches the existence of one. This is a significant difference. However, one of the beautiful passages from the Christian Bible reads, "If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres." 1 Corinthians 13, 1, 7. This echoes what Buddhism teaches, that the quality of our hearts, our capacity for love, is more important than any supernatural powers we may possess, any ability to foresee the future, any strength of faith, or any noble deeds we might perform. Therefore, while Buddhism and Christianity certainly differ in their theological concepts and theories in terms of the virtues of the soul, ethics, and conduct, religions have many similarities. Is Buddhism compatible with science? Before answering the question, it's better to define science. According to the dictionary, science is knowledge that can be made into a system, knowledge consistent with what we observe, events that are testable, and lead to the formulation of natural laws, any branch of this knowledge, and anything that can be studied accurately. Some aspects of Buddhism may not align perfectly with this definition, but the core teachings of Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths, certainly do. The first noble truth, the truth of suffering, dukkha, is an observable, experiential, and measurable phenomenon. The second noble truth, the origin of suffering, samudaya, states that suffering arises from a natural cause, desire, which also can be described, observed, and measured. There's no attempt to explain suffering through metaphysical concepts or mythical stories. The cessation of suffering, as explained in the third noble truth, Nirodha, doesn't rely on a supreme being, faith, or prayers, but simply on the elimination of its cause. This is a clear and evident principle. The fourth noble truth, the path, magga, leading to the cessation of suffering once again, has nothing to do with the metaphysical, but depends on living life in a specific way. And again, this way of life can be tested. Buddhism, like science, doesn't rely on the notion of a supreme being to explain the causes and operations of the universe, but explains them according to natural laws. All these points clearly demonstrate a scientific spirit. Furthermore, the Buddha always advised against blind faith, urging instead that teachings be thoroughly investigated, studied, and scrutinized before being accepted as truth. He stated, "Do not believe in something simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in traditions simply because they have been handed down for many generations. Do not believe in something because it is spoken and rumored by many. Do not believe in something just because it is written in your religious scriptures. Do not believe in something merely on the authority of your teachers and elders. Do not believe in theories because you have devised them yourself. But after observation and analysis, when you find anything that agrees with reason and is conducive to the good and benefit of one and all, then accept it and live up to it." From the Kalama Sutta, AN 3.65. Therefore, while Buddhism may not be entirely scientific, it has a profound scientific dimension and is arguably more scientific in nature than other religions. This sentiment is echoed by Albert Einstein, one of the greatest scientists of the 20th century, who remarked about Buddhism, "The religion of the future will be a cosmic religion. It should transcend a personal God and avoid dogmas and theology. Covering both the natural and the spiritual, it should be based on a religious sense arising from the experience of all things natural and spiritual as a meaningful unity." Buddhism meets this description. If there is any religion that could cope with modern scientific needs, it would be Buddhism. Albert Einstein. The Buddha referred to his noble Eightfold Path as the middle way, Majjhima Patipada. This term is significant because it reminds us that it's not only about following the path, but doing so in a particular way. We often have a tendency towards rigidity, clinging strictly to religious rules and practices, becoming extreme. In Buddhism, precepts are to be followed and practices are to be applied in a balanced and reasonable manner, avoiding extremes. The ancient Romans had a saying, "Moderation in all things," and as Buddhists, we fully agree with that. Some say that Buddhism is just a form of Hinduism. Is that true? Hinduism also teaches karma and rebirth. However, its teachings are quite different from those in Buddhism. For example, Hinduism states that we are defined by our karma, whereas Buddhism states that our karma only conditions us. Hinduism speaks of an eternal soul, Atman, moving from life to life, while Buddhism denies such a soul, stating instead that there is a continuously changing stream of consciousness that gets reborn. These are just a few of the differences between the two religions regarding karma and rebirth. Even if Buddhist and Hindu teachings were identical, which they are not, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Buddha mechanically copied someone else's ideas. Sometimes, two individuals, quite independently, discover the same thing. A prime example is the theory of evolution. In 1858, just before publishing his famous book On the Origin of Species, Charles Darwin found out that another scholar, Alfred Russel Wallace, had come up with a similar idea, yet they had not copied each other's thoughts. Instead, by studying the same phenomenon, they arrived at the same conclusions. So, even if Hindu and Buddhist ideas on karma and rebirth seem similar, and they are in fact very different, it doesn't necessarily prove copying. The truth is, through their meditative insights, ancient Hindu sages had vague ideas about karma and rebirth that the Buddha later clarified and explained more fully and accurately.